Hello, it's me, Brother Damon, Damon Chief Jones. You know, your guy. I come to talk to you today about the founding of the nation, the founding of America. You know, this place where we live, you know what I'm saying. America! Alright. Anyway, people tell me all the time what to do and not do. But I'm going to do what I want to do. How about that? Okay, in talking about the founding of the nation, we need to go back and remember that the supreme sovereign on planet Earth, recognized by the nations that be at the time, was who? The King of England. That's correct. The authorized government publication, the royal publication of the King James Version of the Bible was 1611. The United States government printing office also prints it. It's a government publication. That's why they have to recognize it and allow it to go into court. It was recognized by the international people that be at the time when it was published. Okay, and it was a royal publication by the Supreme Sovereign. So it was accepted and it was understood. And you can still take it into a court today. You can still take your Christian flag in there and you can still show that you have a previous, prior, and supreme covenant with your Creator God, and you're under His flag, you're under His protection. And that puts you into a whole new judicial realm under the laws of God. And there's ways to go about that. But it would probably take about 2 hours on here to go through it. So you'll just have to take my word for it unless we do a special study on it. So keep that in mind. Keep in mind that slavery took place in the United Kingdom. When people came here to America as colonialists, as settlers, not immigrants, but settlers, and there's a big difference. Okay, people say, well, everybody's an immigrant. No, we were settlers. We were settling a wild and untamed land, building a civilization, building a civilized civilization. And there were many wars, just like we fought with Indians. People said, oh, well, you come and killed all of them. Well, the Indians were fighting against themselves for tribal superiority, for tribal lands, for horses, for women and children, for resources. So they were fighting among themselves. Okay? It was a tribal way of life. Just like in Africa, the black people in Africa were fighting tribal wars against each other and killing each other in tribal wars for the same thing. All right? And Indians were captured other Indians, bought and sold and traded other Indians into slavery. That's not a convenient truth, but it's there, well documented. Well, the black people in Africa, they were trading children and women and men into slavery from tribe to tribe. So they had their own in-house slavery among their own people. When the colonists went to different parts of Africa and they become aware of all these things, and the people in Africa wanted the goods, they said, well, we'll trade you or sell you these slaves. So they took these slaves back to the United Kingdom and other parts of the world. Thus, you have slavery. It doesn't come out so pretty that a people was enslaving their own people. But you know, the Egyptians enslaved the Israelites, my ancestors. So my people have been enslaved. And then I had some people in my ancestry that own slaves. Not many, but some that I'm aware of. There may be more. So my people have both been slaves and slave owners. So my people did both sides of the gamut, researching all the way back on my tree as far as I can. And I said that to say this: Usually, if somebody's black, it's considered if they say nigga or nigger, it's okay because you, quote, can't go against your own people. It's acceptable. So if I said honky, cracker, white boy to somebody else white, quote, that's acceptable. But if somebody black or Negro, colored, whatever, says cracker, honky, all these things, then it's derogatory. I get it. You can talk about your own family and your own people any way you want to, but you don't want other people talking about them any way you want to. And that's culturally. So I'm trying to set up a little background here so there ain't no big gigantic backlash and you don't give me all the love I'm entitled to. Okay? If you like me, tune me in. Share me with your friends. Say, this guy knows some stuff. Okay? And he can actually back it up. Now, he can't sit at a device on the computer and answer questions 24 hours a day. He's got a life. But he does do pretty dang good in answering everybody so far. Okay? So remember, the king, he was coronated, ordained on the cornerstone. You can research this. Okay? King David, King Solomon, they were all coronated. So, depending on a few variables, who you talk, it's going to vary slightly, but many took eggs and broke eggs and poured the eggs and the egg yolks over their head as a form of blessing. They took wine, new wine, not fermented alcohol wine, but new wine, and poured it over their head. Then they had oil, virgin oil, and they would take the virgin oil and pour it over their head. And they would confess that they was Christian. They would confess that God had called them to be a ruler, to be the king, and the religious leader simultaneously, or to work with them. Okay, so it used to be just like Melchizedek. He was king and high priest. It was quite normal to be a king and high priest. So you had the secular authority on planet Earth, secular authority, and you had God's authority, and they were interwoven into one man. Thus my title, King Damon, Presiding High Priest, Sovereign Church of Jesus. I'm a successor in my day and time of Melchizedek. So I'm a king and a high priest. Now, the government can recognize me or not recognize me. It doesn't matter. God recognizes me. That's good enough for me. God's always been good enough for me. Anyway, you had what they call the divine right of kings. So whatever the king did was okay. Up into very limited areas. There was very limited areas that a king could not pass or go beyond, such as the threshold of a man's house or his castle. Thus, no hassle in my castle. If the king, the presiding high priest, crossed the threshold into your home, you, being the master of your own abode where you dwell, and you're the supreme master in your own home, for there is nowhere else for you to go, then he subjects himself unto you. Okay? These are ancient rites and customs of Christians. Okay? And it also goes to inalienable rights that God bestowed upon his people. No government, no king, nobody gave it to us. God gave it to us. Okay? Pretend that we don't have a constitution. Just for a moment, pretend we don't have one and ain't never had one. You have an absolute, inalienable right by your Creator God to have a right of self-protection, being a gun, being a knife, being a cannon, a hand grenade, baseball bats, knives, dirks, bricks, rocks, sling blades, Whatever you can make with your two hands, or you and another brother or sister can make, you have a right of self-defense. It's been that way forever because God gave it to you. No man gave you that right. Thus, no man can take that right. And that's why it was commonly understood through the centuries. And when they fixed the Constitution for the United States, it was commonly understood. And at one point, they talked about, why do we even need to put that in the Constitution? It is commonly understood. But the framers were smart enough to say that as the nation grows, the population grows, there will be some men and some women that'll say, well, let's don't let everybody have guns. So we're going to have to put it in writing, because there may come a time when people don't understand that these rights come from God. They don't come from man. And no man can take away what he doesn't give. God can't give you an acre of land over there, and then because I'm the sheriff in the county or the constable, or I'm some kind of taxing agent, I can't say, well, I'm going to take that land from you. I can't. I didn't give it to you. I can't take what I don't give to you. I have no rights under the laws of God. I have no rights under secular law. The highest law is God. Period, unequivocally. God gave us all of our rights. The Constitution simply recognized, hey, God gave all of us these rights. So it's a recognition. The government ain't giving nothing. We're just recognizing God, and he gave us these rights. Okay? But we're going to write it down on paper. And we as the government, your government servants, you're making a covenant with us. God made a covenant with man, and it's the Holy Bible. Has no expiration date. Some people say it's a contract. No, it doesn't. All contracts have a start date and an expiration date, and they have terms of service and agreements and clauses and all this stuff. The Bible doesn't have all of that. It is a covenant that God, our Creator, laid down upon us and said, here's my duties and responsibilities to you as your Creator and your Father. Here are yours to me. And woe unto you, basically, that don't follow this. We use God's example and God's teaching, and we created a covenant, our Holy Bible, as the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, with our servants. It has no expiration date. They have no inherent rights. They're not people. They're a government. They're an entity. They're a fiction on paper. They operate in fantasy roles, in fictional roles. That's why they're called actors. In a lot of states, it'll say, are you a good actor or a bad actor? A bad actor is considered a criminal or civil rights violator. If you're a good actor, then you're, quote, a good servant. Okay? So real men fit into fictional roles into the corporate government. But if you get back to it, it's not a corporate government. Even though they operate it that way, they're misapplying it. The government is in covenant with we the people that hold the power. I hold the power by myself as an individual man in the image of God, and I hold it jointly with all of my fellow men. Okay? I can't go take another man's gun from him. The government can't take no man's gun from him. Okay? We can't do it. They can't do it to us. Some people believe that only the military and the police should have guns. That's wrong. Another reason they put that in the Constitution was to say, look, if the government becomes tyrannical, every type of gun and every type of weapon they have on the military side, then the citizenry and the state militias need to have equitable weaponry. Elsewise, if they become tyrannical, they could just overthrow the people and turn it into a kingdom or a military dictatorship. They can't do it because you have millions and millions of people with millions and millions of guns, bricks and baseball bats and cars and know-how to fight them back. People say, well, AR-15s only belong in the military. No, they don't. Everybody has a right to make one, buy one, or get one. It ain't that you need it. It's that you have a right to it. And people can't question your right. I get tired of people saying things like that, like you have no need for an AR-15. Well, it's not up to you to decide if I need one. That's between me and God if I need one. Okay? I can't load very fast. If I am out on the hunt and I'm hunting for deer or elk or squirrels or rabbits or anything else I want to, then I need to have this semi-automatic weapon to be able to shoot and shoot and shoot without having to reload. And do you need more than 10 cartridges? I don't know. But it's my right. If I want to put 100 in there or 6,000 in there, that's my business. I hunt how I want to hunt. By the way, I don't need no license to hunt. God said I have dominion over the animals and therefore my substance. So if you gave me a license, you'd be taxing my right to eat, my right to hunt, my right to provide substance to me and myself. You don't need no hunting license and you don't need no fishing license. It's some concocted scheme of modern day government over the last 50 to 75, 80 years for revenue. That's just like you don't need a driver's license unless you're a commercial driver. A man or woman in their own private automobile goes where they want to. So I'm trying to get you to understand this Constitution first. Okay? We very first had this slavery going on under the United Kingdom. So the people continued their customs and usage. Look up what that means. Their customs and usage. So they had been trained this way under the monarchy. Okay? So the 5, maybe 10% of the upper echelon of people had money to afford slaves. So you had to have money to buy land. Then you had to have money for seed to seed your land. You had to have considerable money to get slaves. Then you had to make sure and take good care of your slaves. If your slave died or got sick and couldn't work, you lost your investment. So whether you liked black people or you hated their guts was irrelevant. Just strictly from a business standpoint, you had to take good care of what you had. And they were considered property in the law at the time. Okay? Slavery is illegal. And it's wrong. It's always been wrong. All the way back since when my people was made slaves, the Israelites were made slaves in Egypt. It was wrong then, it's wrong today, it's always been wrong. I'm just stating facts, not opinions here, okay? So only the top economic people that were in good stead with the king had enough money to travel here to the United States, be a colonist, start a plantation, had the money to afford all this stuff, be able to afford doctors and welfare care for your slaves. Okay? So you gotta look at it that 90% of the white people never owned a slave. And probably 10 to 20% of them was indentured servants themselves. So remember, the king is allowing this there. And he's allowing it for the colonists. So when they become America, they believe they had a right to continue keeping their property. Okay, a plow, a horse, or a Negro, a slave, was property. And this is only the top 10%. Okay, and they're making the state laws or national laws for the nation on slavery. So the people with all the money was making on the laws, and they're the ones that own the slaves. So the government didn't have no slaves. Only the top 10% at max. Some people say it was 3%. So maybe 3 to 10% of the people. 90% of white people never owned a slave. They didn't have a dog in the fight. Okay, most white people wished slavery would go away because they thought it was bad to start with. Number two, if a slave had a job, then you couldn't go get a job. But it wasn't economically viable to hire a white man or a white woman to work, even though wages were low, because if you had a slave by today's standards and you paid $50,000 for a slave, you had a lifetime of work, say 30, 40, 50 years, depending on what time you got the slave. So you might have up to 50 years and as little as 30. We'll divide the money into it. In today's standards, if you was paying, say, a white man or a white woman, even minimum wage, they're somewhere around 15 or 20,000 a year. Okay, just say 20, 40, 60 in 3 years. You've eat up 30 or 40 or 50 years worth of slave work in 3 years. So it's not viable, and cotton was king. So I'm explaining why and how that got to be. Not that it was right, it was always wrong. Okay, the white people suffered because they couldn't get jobs. The black people was being hijacked from their country. Now keep in mind, they were already slaves of other black tribes, so they was going to be a slave there or a slave here. Now they would have been in their customs usage with their own black people, but they would have still been a slave. Okay, so I'm just trying to keep it real, and I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to get you to understand. Okay, now see, the black people in Africa and stuff were mostly Muslim. Very, 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 very few, very limited parts in North Africa and in Southern Africa, which used to be a lot more white people there, and the geography changed. So being African doesn't necessarily mean being black. There was tons and tons and tons of people, especially in North Africa, that was white. Even in South Africa, I just went to a study with a bunch of doctors. I went up to North Arkansas for a 3-day training with doctors, physicians that were learning, and I was a guest because they liked me, and they said, for you not to be an MD, you're pretty damn smart and you catch on fast, and you practice medicine man. You're medicine man. You're a medicine man. You know, you follow your tribal teachings from your Cherokee heritage. Okay? And your grandmother that come out of the Cherokees, she taught you these things that you know. And her people taught her what they know and so forth, and said, so you're sharing with other people. So you're a spirit dancer of sorts. You're a medicine man. You're a lawman. You're a man on behalf of the Great Father. So Jesus tried to be all things to all men. And as I follow Jesus, I try and be all things to all men. That's just like right now, people got this term called people of color. That really chaps my butt, because any color but white, tan, flesh color, whatever you want to call white people, any color other than that is considered people of color. I've heard every nationality, well, people of color. So what? White ain't in the color spectrum? You know, so that's singling out white people based on their color, their skin, and their race. So it singles us out and treats us different. So everybody but us. So it's not okay for white people to exclude other people of color, people of color, but it's okay for people of color, of any color, all colors but white, to discriminate against white. Right's right and fair is fair all the way around. Okay? If I'm gonna hire somebody to do a job, I don't care what color you are, and I don't care where you come from. If you know how to do the job, and you got a reputation for doing a good job, and you charge a fair and equitable fee to me to do the job, or we barter for it, I'm happy. I'm going to get the best man for the job. Sometimes that's a white man, sometimes it's a brown man, a black man, a red man, or yellow man. Sometimes it ain't a man, sometimes it's a woman. Sometimes it's not a man or a woman, but it's a child. When I say a child, they might be 15 or 16, but they're exceptionally good at something that they do that I might need done. You know, it might be something to do with electronics. These kids are whizzes with electronics. This is their life. Where me and you used to go to dances, they go to a virtual dance on the computer and never leave their house. Okay? It's disassociation, and it's dumbing down the nation, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. But I do have a method to my madness if you'll hold on. We, the founding of the country, we had the Articles of Confederation. Articles of Confederation. The states had gigantic rights. And the national government, what they call federal now, and that's a good thing to know, national federal. We need to have a talk on national federal and what that means. The nation means the people. The country means the land. If you say, hey, what about your country? You're talking about the soil, the land. You talk about the nation, you're talking about the people. There are nations of people with no country. There are countries without a nation, believe it or not. I'm like Ripley, but I'm Damon. Damon, believe it or not. Hey, before I forget, I'm over on Patreon. I got one video over there, and I got a brother. I'm new to this thing. I got a brother that's going to try and help me put some more videos over there, and that's at that patreon.com/Daymond, DAYMOND 4040. So if you can support me over there, I appreciate it, and I'll keep trying to get material over there. And then I'm going to put some exclusive Patreon stuff over there that's exclusive. It won't be here. Not because I'm cutting nobody out, but because I'm trying to get a way to get donations to sustain my mission. Now, I'll always keep putting stuff here, but you could call it the bonus material, the extra, whatever I'm going to put over there. And so I'm going to take care of everybody some kind of way. That's just me, just who I am. But when you get this Articles of Confederation, it says states have lots of rights, and the national government, for lack of a better word, has certain responsibilities, but they're limited. But it was a little willy-nilly, too much for some people. So they come along and said, we're going to get a constitution. I'm reading my notes here so I don't get crazy, than I am. All right. So you get this constitution. Once you make a covenant, and the Articles of Confederation was a covenant, the representatives, our sovereign government, went and did our bidding and voted and created the Articles of Confederation. It doesn't expire. The Constitution of the United States didn't do away with it. It's still in existence. Okay? Once you have a right, it's understood, it's established, it's recognized. Okay? It never goes away. So anything that is repugnant to, repulsive, like a north and south magnet goes, okay, it's repulsive. It must go together like a hand in glove. So the Articles of Confederation are still very much there. The Federalist Papers, for a guide and a help and the insight to the minds and intent of the founders of the nation, okay, they were the first, and they had a dual role. Now think about this. Think about this a lot. I had about an 18-hour, not all at one time, but an 18-hour conversation with some of the smartest men in America about this. It was the one and only time in our nation's history that both the representatives of the people were going on behalf of us as representatives and acting as the servants simultaneously to put together and sign documents. So they were we the people, as in they were us, and they signed on behalf of the government as us in a constitution. That's why it had to be ratified. People don't know it, but the original 13th Amendment was ratified without any doubt whatsoever. The second 13th Amendment, which would have normally been the 14th Amendment, but they tried to hide the first one, or Abraham Lincoln did, the second 13th Amendment was not lawfully ratified. Ratified as in deemed ratified. Like, I can deem I'm 21 years old. But that's a lie, and you know it, and I know it. I'm not 21. But I could deem it. So they deemed it. That's just a way of going around the law and saying, we're just not going to recognize it and pretend like it ain't there. We're going to sweep it on the rug, and we're going to lie about it. No. So they went as us, we the people. And they acted as the government servants in that position to make an agreement. It's like us agreeing with ourselves. The first and only time it happened. So it's called a provisional government. Not the legitimate ongoing government, but the legitimate temporary government, provisional. So they had these Articles of Confederation. Then they said, too much willy-nilly, too much misunderstanding, so we're going to create a constitution. So we're going to tighten this thing up. Okay, make it more clear. However, you can't do anything repugnant to the people's ratified Articles of Confederation. So they go in and they get this constitution. But the states say, look, we're going to have amendments to this so that it's absolutely, totally, unequivocally clear that you got a right to free speech. Hate speech wasn't even considered then, but they probably had 10 times as much hate speech back then, and they were very bold. Men called each other out for duels with pistols, fist fights. Fortunes were won and lost, and people would threaten to kill each other. If that ain't hate speech, because you come from Ireland, I'll just kill you, okay? How much more imminent, direct hate speech could there be? But in that day and time, that was normal. That was in customs and usage. I keep telling you, look up customs and usage. It is the superior claim. So if your people speak smoking peyote for 400 years, and that's the custom and usage of your people, you can't have some new government come in here and make an arbitrary law that says you can't have cannabis or peyote in your religious services or when you're seeking answers, because it's the custom and usage of your people for 400 years. That's just like before the Articles of Confederation. There were constables. People forget this. The people themselves said there has to be somebody in our community to keep the customs and usage, which was, for lack of a better word, was biblical law in day-to-day life. Somebody had to be the constable. So they would get usually the most learned men, which used to be a pharmacist many times in certain communities, and the town, the people. I mean, this might be like 15 or 20 families, and they would get together and they would say, well, we want somebody to recommend who's going to be constable, then name some names. And the people to say, well, brother so-and-so, he's the best man, and so they would just tell him, okay, we hereby appoint you the constable. It wasn't no election, it was just an appointment. They was an office of the people. The people created this office for their own safety. So this man agreed to walk around the farms or villages or other places and keep law and order. So if somebody stole somebody's chicken, then he had to go deal with him, and maybe he would talk to the guy with the chicken. He says, "What do you want to do?" He said, "Well, he stole my chicken, so I believe he should have to work 2 days in my fields for stealing my chickens. I'm going to feed him, but he's going to have to work 2 days." Well, that's how it went. A lot of strange things like that happen. You got to go get these old books and old first-hand accounts out of the newspapers to read these things, like I've done for years and years and years, to understand this stuff. Not revisionist history, not what they tell you on TV, not what's called documentaries. Some of them are right, some of them are wrong, some of them are middle of the road. But you got to think of who's sponsoring the programs, who paid the programs. Are they a leftist? Are they a super liberal mind that they're so razor sharp, narrow minded that they shut down everything except for what they want to say? So free speech only counts if it's far over here to the left. If it's in the center or center right, the boogeyman's all in it. No, the spectrum goes far left to far right. Okay? Our nation, when it was founded, was not just center right, it was really right. I mean, not to the extreme. We're lunatics. There were some lunatics out there, but it was in the middle. So if this is the middle and this is the far, far right, somewhere here in the middle, about a number 5. But in the 1930s, it started getting closer and closer edging, and around the 1960s, it stayed here on center right. And it stayed there for a lot of years. But as we did away with silver and went off the gold standard and a lot of other things happened, then it got kind of close to the middle. Then Reagan brought it back to center right. Then it kind of got in the left, and it kind of went back and forth. And for the first time ever, when that cat Obama went up there to the White House to stay, then it shifted center left. And it started edging more to the left to where a lot of things is on the lunatic fringe. I know cops that don't really know what to do. When I say they don't know what to do, they want to uphold the law, they want to uphold immigration, they want to do the right thing, they want to protect you and me and everybody else, but the politics are so crazy, they don't know whether their hair's on fire or their butt's on fire. They're really in a conundrum, so a lot of them are thinking about retiring or getting out. A lot of police have been watching my videos, and I get a lot of, they don't ever comment on there, but they send me emails, and I've talked to them. Some of them have quit writing tickets for driver's license or registration because they've come to understand the law. So I'm having an effect, and it's a good one. Okay, I have a lot of contacts from here to the White House. Okay, I have a lot of contacts in various state capitals. I have local, state, and national law enforcement peace officer contacts here throughout the country. That's probably the only reason I ain't dead. I know too many people in too many places that really like me and really believe in what I'm saying. I have contacts with a lot of people. I'd never mention their name because I don't want to lose these contacts. Okay? But to go on, they have this Bill of Rights. So if you're going to give people the right to speak, which you're not giving it to them, excuse me, God gave the people the right to speak their mind. Okay? The government recognizes it in the First Amendment. The newspaper has a right to print the truth, not conjecture, not crazy lunatic opinions, but to report the known facts. The only way you keep people being able to speak free and understood that they have this right is the right of the Second Amendment, the right to be armed. Okay, that's why they call it arms. It's neutral. You're armed. You're not ready for offense or defense. You're mainly just ready to respond, and that's why they had the Minutemen. You were ready to respond within a minute because they could get their guns ready in a minute. Well, now you can be the 2-second man. Okay, so what I'm saying is, they said in order to guarantee the First Amendment, we have to have the Second Amendment, and each individual state has a natural right under God to be free. The way to guarantee that freedom and that freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, all these things, is to make sure the citizens, we the people, are armed to the teeth. Every kind of weapon you can imagine, every kind of ammunition, so that if other states go rogue, we can defend ourselves and defend our homeland in our own state. We're all the United States, but let's just say Arkansas decides that they're going to declare war on Louisiana. For whatever reason, do not all the people in Louisiana have a right to protect themselves? Yes. What if Louisiana declared war on Oklahoma? Does the people in Oklahoma have a right to have guns? Yes. Well, what if the military had some kind of coup? Just make it up. Just so they had some kind of coup, and they decided they're going to take over America and have a military dictatorship. Okay? If we wasn't all armed, how do we deal with that? We got something like, I think if you take in all the reserves, National Guards, and things, of course, a lot of your police, your sheriff's deputies, constables, marshals, a lot of police belong to National Guards or they're in the reserve. So you could be taking 20 to 40% of all police off the streets if all the military was called up for something. But let's just say they're all called up, and you're talking about assets around the world. You're talking about people sitting in nuclear bunkers. You're talking about military bases in foreign countries. If you take every swinging dick we have and every dress out there, I know I ain't politically correct, so, I guess you can send me an email that tells me I'm a dog. But anyway, and then I can delete it or remove it. It works both ways. Two-way street. At any rate, the point is, if you take all of them, we got 1.2 or 1.3 million people that are trained with guns and can go to war. That's the whole shebang. That's it. Okay? But we have 300, they say 320 million. I think it's 350 million, and I got reason to believe that because they want to keep the number of illegal immigrants, criminal immigrants that have criminally trespassed, international criminal trespass, so they're already a criminal. They've already passed the international boundary. They're not undocumented workers. They're not undocumented immigrants. They're criminal international trespassers that have violated our international sovereignty and international boundaries, so they're already a criminal. Some people want them to commit a second crime before you deport them. Nope. I guarantee you, I know we're a compassionate country, but I guarantee you if you had shooter stands like you did in the prisons, and you had them along the base, and somebody went to cross over there and you gave them an order halt in Spanish, Alto, stop! Alto! And they didn't? Maybe a warning shot, maybe not. And a few people were shot and killed on the border. I guarantee there wouldn't be that many people there tomorrow. Just saying. I believe if you get in line and you go through the rigmarole and go through the cockamamie schemes that they got that's jumping through all these hoops, and then we vet you out really well, and you're really going to come here and you're really going to work and you're really going to do a good job and you're really going to help our country, and it's a limited number so that all the people in our nation still have an opportunity for a job, because every immigrant you're going in, that's cutting an American out of a job. Okay? So limited numbers are okay. That's just like we have people in the United States that go to Mexico to work. Okay? So they have a right in Mexico to only let a limited number of Americans come there. because they need to keep their economy for the Mexicans. Same thing in Canada, Yugoslavia, Honduras, El Salvador, name your country. Okay? We just need to be serious and be right about it. Anyway, they created these bills of rights. Well, every state in the Union, which is 50, okay, once you added Alaska and Hawaii, they were the last two, I think, in 59 and 61 or something like that. It's the late 50s, early 60s. I'd have to get back and look at it. I've got so much stuff going on here, sometimes I can tell you a range, but I can't tell you exact. I could look it up, but it's not necessary. Each one of these states has a state constitution. Okay, just like in the Republic of Texas in 1836, when we won our independence, we had a national constitution for the Republic of Texas. Okay? The United States, even though it's titled the United States of America, actually, if you get down to it, it's the Republic of the United States of America. We're a constitutional republic. If somebody says democracy, you might want to go thump them in the nose or the ear and make sure they're awake. Make sure they're not sleepwalking, because we're not a democracy. We're not mob rule, never have been. We're set up as a constitutional republic, still are. And every state is guaranteed a constitutional republic from the national government. It's a guarantee. It's in the covenant. Okay? Each state has its own sovereignty. Okay? They have their own constitution. We made ours. And then once we were made a treaty to be annexed as a nation into the United States and to be styled as the state of Texas, THE, the state of Texas, then we come in as a nation, but we were styled as a state. Okay? Then we created a new constitution in 1845. But that constitution could not be repugnant to the 1836 constitution. And we've had several constitutions, or at least a few, I'd have to go back and look at the number, I think 3 constitutions since then. But if you go read a constitution today, then you might as well just tack on these other constitutions. If there's something in there they left out, it doesn't matter. It's still in there. And if they do something, unless it was ratified to be changed and it was a privileged or an immunity, it don't work. Rights don't go away. Rights aren't given and taken away. Rights are recognized. That's like if you go in a court, a hypothetical court today, and you say, I'm John Joe. Do you recognize that? And the court says, we recognize that. It's recognized and obvious. If that's your name, John Joe, then the court recognized it. But if your name's John Joe and it's been that way for 75 years, the court says, I don't recognize that it's your name. It's irrelevant. It's still your name. Okay, the rights still exist whether they're recognized or not. So you have a state constitution. So everybody's under 2 constitutions, under your state constitution and your national constitution. Okay, and you have the rights recognized in both of them. If they're in conflict, like in commerce, interstate commerce, then the federal constitution supersedes if it's in conflict over something that they have authority over, just like immigration. You could have in your constitution, you could have something about immigration. But if your thing on immigration over here violates this here, then because it's immigration, that's the sole wheelhouse of the federal or national government. So you can't override that. That's just the way it is. Okay. Now that we said all that, this is an entire program on getting that concept. And then you got your state constitution. So let's take the constitution, put them over here. Now, somewhere in the late 1800s, early 1900s, then states got busy making state laws. Not a penal code, not statutes, law. Okay, that meant that it had to be read once in a day. Then you could go back the second day or different days and then read it a second time. Then you had to go back another day or different time and read it 3 times. So it had to have 3 readings. It had to pass all 3 readings. If it passed all 3 readings and then the House of Representatives in your state passed it, then it went to your Senate, for lack of a better word, of a ratification to be passed. And then if it was passed, then it went on to the governor for his signature or veto, and then they could override or not, just like the National Congress does with the president. Okay, so you got dual governments. Okay, then it became a law. Well, in different states between the 1920s and 1969, then they come up with a new thing. A lot of times they would have 2 readings, not 3. So now it's not constitutional. So now it's a policy, or it's a suggestion, or it's a statute, or it's a code, but not law. Okay? They may treat it as law. They may misapply it as law, but it's not actually law. Okay? Then you turn around and you get government offices and government departments, and they start doing their own interpretation of something that ain't even a law to start with. And then they rearrange it, they change it, and they give opinions and policies. This is how we're going to look at it. This is how we're going to treat it around here. So they had a state policies, procedures, and all this thing over here on something that was not a law. Treated like a law, but was not a law. So you've been going on for 50 to 80, 90 years. They've been coming down with statutes, policies, procedures, and codes that they treated like it was the law, but it was not. It just was not. Another one of my many fans. Okay, so it was not. But it was treated like that. So you got that over here, these statutes and codes. Then you got the Constitution over here, but the Constitution is really up here. Right below the Constitution is the real laws. So long as it's not repugnant to the Constitution. If it's repugnant to the Constitution, it dies instantly as though it was never written. Okay, a lot of Supreme Court cases on that. But all the laws that are laws that do not. Then on down here, then you got things that pass for law, but it's not law. It's a code, a policy, a procedure. Okay? Then you go on down here lower, and when you get lower, I mean really lower, then you have individual offices that want to call themselves agencies now because they're starting to write policy and procedure into so-called law that ain't law that says agencies can do this, that, and other. So they want to get themselves designated as agencies, so they got a lot more leeway instead of they're truly supposed to have this much, but it gives them this much leeway. So you got your Constitution and true laws over here. You got your things that pass for law that ain't law over here. Okay? Those are 2 different sets. Then right back here in this thing that was just teeny tiny in the between about 1915, 1918, and about 1933, there was an itty bitty line called administrative process or administrative state. Okay? It's to where the state and the federal government said, we're going to let you take something, constitutional issue or state law, we're going to let you go to this tiny little sliver of gray area, and we're going to let you act in an unconstitutional and an unlawful way to make decisions about criminal and civil acts. And it'll speed up the process because it's bypassing the judiciary, it's bypassing the legislature, it's bypassing everything. And if you're happy, if your department or agency or office is happy and the other people are happy, nobody's going to complain. So they started hiding these offices and these other locations within these administrative offices. For example, the Office of Risk Management, or let's see, what do you call it? Give me a second here. Told you I ain't prepared sometimes. The Office of Administration is hidden within the workers' comp department or workers' comp office in North Carolina. So I say 99% of the people don't even know where the administrative office is located. But they got a nondescript building, and so long as you know, then if you got a traffic ticket, if you got a court issue, I mean, if they want to go this way, you could have had a case of rape. I'm just being bold. And you contact the Office of Risk Management over at the Workers' Comp Office for State Administrator, and you go in there and say, well, I really didn't do this and didn't do that, but I'm willing to reimburse the police $20,000 for their investigation, and I'm willing to do this, and I'm willing to do that, and I'm willing to go get some counseling for this, and I'm willing to pay for some psychological counseling for that girl, and we'll just we'll just hammer this out. If that executive signs that paper and you sign it, then it took it totally out of the judicial realm. So now you cannot be sentenced to jail or prison for your wrongdoing. So you escape justice through administrative system, but they found a way to get money in their system. They found a way to, quote, fix it. And it's administratively. Normally they wouldn't do it for something that heinous, but they take care of a lot of claims through the administrator's office or the Office of Revenue or the Office of Risk Management or Office of Loss Prevention. Every state's got a loss prevention or risk management. And in fact, if you send them a notice of intent to file claims against a sheriff's office, a constable's office, a city council, or whatever, if they violate your rights and you send it to them and send it to the other party and you tell them you're going to fine them $10,000 a day for violation, then risk management and the legal department will contact them and say, hey, we've been notified and we're going to have to pay this claim because we've been notified administratively that if you violate these people, we're going to have to pay these fees and these fines. So lay off. Some people have gone through them and got on the do not detain list for their driver's license or their registration, or they've been able to change their status from voter to elector. There's a lot to that voter and elector stuff. It changes your status, and it's very, very important. Okay? So this is a constitutional class, a administrative state explanation, and how codes and various things work. I'm available for consultation on the phone. I still don't understand this Skype thing too well. A couple people want to Skype with me, and I don't seem to be able to do it. I will learn it, but I'm not there yet, okay? I'm smart on the law and smart on the Bible, but these electronics, whew. Anyway, you can email me at Daymond, Daymond, Daymond4040 at yahoo.com. You can email me there. We can make arrangements for a consultation and a small donation. If you're hard against it and you ain't got nothing to give for a donation, but you still need some help, I'll do what I can for you. Just the kind of guy I am. That's also the email for my PayPal account. And like I said, I'm over at that Patreon now, patreon.com/Damon, DAYMOND 4040. I've only got one video over there now. I'm going to be putting more over there and doing some exclusive content only for that location. So support me here, support me there, do whatever you can to help me out. In other words, I'm creating content, I'm teaching you. If you went to classes to learn what I'm teaching, people are charging $100 to $500 per student or a donation, and they're taking silver or gold. I'll take silver or gold too. I love silver. Gold, I like gold, but I like silver even better. I've actually had some people give me 1 ounce of silver or 2 or 3 ounces of silver, ship it to me or different things, and then I've used it to barter for some food or something for my substance. Some I've kept for myself. And remember, if you're going to buy a home or you're going to buy a car, you're going to do something, in my opinion, and I can do a class on this, and I can do consultation on this, you need $21 silver, because anything $20 or greater becomes a controversy in law, and you're entitled to a judicial hearing and a judicial trial. So if I'm going to buy something real, I do it with 21 silver dollars. That means silver dollars that were made prior to 1964. You know, I could take 2 Kennedy halves, and that's $1. So I could take 42 Kennedy dollars, or I could go back and get some Peace dollars or Morgan silver dollars that are 90% silver, and they meet the constitutional calculation at like 0.77 something silver to count as real silver. $21 of that, which is probably $400 or $500 cash converted into that. If you pay that for a car or a home, and it's in the agreement, and it's acknowledged, then you have full ownership, and you cut the state and the county out of ownership, and you cut them out of taxes and registrations and other things. That's a whole deep study. But anyway, I love y'all. Support me at Patreon /Damon4040, or here on my Damon4040yahoo.com account. You know, $5, $10, $20 is all good. And just by the way, for y'all that have gave things, thank you very, very much. God bless you today and every day of your life. And for those that couldn't give, God bless you too. Okay? And to the people that are the trolls that come out from underneath the bridges to aggravate me and aggravate the other people, may God have mercy on your soul for the wrong that you do to me and others. Looking good in the neighborhood. Okay, this is Brother Damon signing off. Love y'all. God bless you. Have a super great Jesus day.